Welcome to the Sustain, Change and Grow podcast, where we discuss questions related to climate change and sustainable personal development with experts across different fields. I'm Dilara Salahova. I am currently working at the European Central Bank on sustainable finance topics, and I would like to emphasize that this podcast is not related to my work at the ECB. Instead, it is a part of my desire and effort to raise awareness about the importance of individual actions to address current environmental issues and to bring desired changes into one's life. I'm so pleased to have you in my podcast, Sustain, Change and Grow, as you're a perfect fit to this podcast dedicated to sustainability, change, and development. You're very welcome. And when thinking about my questions, first I thought I would ask you about sustainability journey, but then I thought it's pretty uncommon to have a woman from a post-communist country who reached such high position in the international environment. And I thought it would be interesting to start and to learn a bit more about your background and your family. So can you tell us a bit more, where did you grow up, and what your parents did and how did you became who you became?
Thank you, and hi everyone. I'm so happy to be at your podcast because these are topics that I really cherish and I'm passionate about. It's interesting how I get to be what I am today. Wow, that's an interesting question. Which, if you have asked me when I was 20, I would say, well, that's never going to happen. It's no way I could be that person. But as you said, I grew up behind the Iron Curtain. So you wouldn't know what it is. It was at least 20 years before you were born. And it was the Eastern European bloc, where we were just kind of there. We were not able to travel outside of the bloc. And since I was a child, I was always dreaming about traveling, seeing different countries, different cultures, learning about people. I was reading a lot of books about travel, experiences, adventure. So that was my goal generally. That was one of the main goals in my life, to travel. So that's what drove me throughout my career. It doesn't sound very related to banking and finance, but that's what it is. This is what drove me. I come from a very normal working class family. My father was an engineer. My mother was a teacher. So nothing special. I don't have a background of money or any support. Whatever I made in life, I did it because I worked hard. That was it. So when I was at school, I had to support myself, and I started as a tailor so I can make clothes. That's where my fashion taste and just passion for fashion also comes. I have many passions in my life. So I was that. And when I finished school and had to go to university, being in economic university, studying banking was something very up and coming, very fashionable. So that's why I applied. I got accepted in Bulgaria, where I grew. You would have no option not to go to university. Everybody has to go to university. It was free of charge. So it just had to be good enough to pass the entrance exam, which was quite tough. And I studied there banking. When I finished university, I decided, well, I have to now do something so I can start travel. And what is the best way to apply for an international institution? And I applied in all international institutions in Bulgaria at that time. Luckily, at that time, Bulgaria was opening. It was post-communism then. And there were not many, but a good number. So I applied everywhere. And unfortunately, all of them rejected me. So I had that dream of mine was crushed very early. And I remember sitting and thinking, well, I have to work. That's it. So I started looking for ads and I said, well, I studied banking. I may as well start working in a bank. And I applied to a local bank. They accepted me. And this is how my journey started. I started in a Bulgarian bank. Then the first international bank that came, I became member of the team that founded the bank. Then the next bigger international bank came. I joined that bank. And after that, I went to Romania with Raiffeisen Bank. I was chief operating officer at that time. And Citibank headhunted me to go back to Bulgaria and to be a founding member of Citibank Bulgaria. And this is how my journey, 21 years long journey with Citibank started. And with Citibank, after Bulgaria, I moved to London, covering Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And then I went to Asia, where I used to live in Singapore for 5 years and Hong Kong for 5 years. So that's my story. As I said, travel is what drove me, surprisingly. But of course, I'm very ambitious. I wanted to achieve something, and I think I did in all the areas that I was planning to. So now I decided to have a different path. I've been a banker for 25 years. Well, maybe I can do something else, and that's why 8 months ago I decided to take a break and tried a career which is a portfolio career, many different things that brings revenue to you, and you can develop in different areas.
Yeah, that's a very inspiring example. So you're really a self-made woman, and it's amazing. So, and you have succeeded in starting up so many different banks. So there's no doubt you will succeed in starting up your own company. So
yeah, it's very different though. When you start your own company, it's you, myself, and me. That's it.
Yeah.
I, myself, nobody else. So it's very different when you work in a institution, rather a big one or a small one. You have that much resources who can help you, guide you through the way. But I hope that the 25 years of working experience will help me here too.
Yeah. Now you have to overcome so many obstacles, and probably the biggest one is maybe the fear, the fear of the uncertainty. And yes. Maybe this is something which prevents so many people from embracing changes and from taking new ways of living and the new challenges.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. It's fear is one factor, but another factor is the lack of knowledge, or maybe that's not the right way to say it. It's people kind of don't venture to learn a bit more of what it is to make a change, and because they are so comfortable and they think, oh, that will never happen to me. And that's another thing. They just believe that there is no life out there. They haven't ventured to even see what it is, to get to know people from different walk of lives and understand how they live, and see some common features that you have with these people. This is how actually it started with me.
So what is your suggestion, or from the experience, what is the key to succeed in implementing a change and sustaining a change?
Well, I'll just share my experience when I decided to have quite a big change, to live a very successful banking career and go into the unknown. But it was not a decision that was taken overnight, although people thought it's all very sudden. But for me, it was not sudden. It was years of thinking, right? 4 or 5 years of thinking and preparing, because it's not easy to take. I'm not such an adventurous person. I just take big changes, but I think very, very carefully about them. So the first thing when the first thing that actually pushed me into that direction is one day I was looking through my LinkedIn and I was thinking, gosh, I only know bankers, lawyers, and people in the finance sector. That's it. I have very few acquaintances, colleagues, people that I interact with outside of this environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was thinking and suddenly that bugged me. I said, no, that's not acceptable, because I'm missing the life outside. What is that life? What do other people do, right? And there are 3 billion people who are working out there in the world. They must have interesting lives. It's not that only mine is interesting. And that's how I started consciously reaching out, connecting with people who were in a completely different walk of lives. So I started meeting with entrepreneurs. I became a member of a women network, which was to support entrepreneurs. So I met so many women who have actually founded their company and were successful. I was completely amazed of the huge opportunities. Then I went a bit deeper, talking to entrepreneurs in the environmental sector, the same thing. Then I was talking to people who are creators on Instagram, LinkedIn, and their life and the way they work also appealed to me. So I created quite a diverse network. And from there, I discovered things that I enjoy much more than what I do at the moment. And then I started thinking, well, how can I achieve that? And the first thing is to really speak to your family. In my case, I'm married and I have two kids. So any change is impacting everybody. It's not what I want to do. I have 2 kids and I have to look after them. I have a husband. He has interest. So the first thing is to talk to your family and see how they would perceive it. And luckily, I'm very lucky with having a great partner. And he initially was kind of saying, no way. I mean, your future value in banking is so much greater than anywhere else. And so we had discussions about this for quite a long time. And then at one point, he got convinced. And once he got convinced, for us, it was only to discuss the financial element. I mean, how we're going to support ourselves, where we're going to live, how it's going to work. And that took quite a substantial time. It took about 2 years to make the plan. But I have been somebody who would save and invest throughout my life, because that's how I am. I mean, as I said, I come from a background where we had no money whatsoever. So for me, it was so important to be financially stable. Yeah. So I have all my bonuses I've never spent on clothes or anything fancy. I always saved them, or I repaid loans. I only took loans for housing, no other loans. Even my credit cards, I always paid in advance. I never. So I have accumulated some wealth, which was invested. So it was just a matter of to calculate, really, to make a budget and say, okay, for the next 2 years, this is how it will work. And then take some decisions of where we're going to live, how we're going to live, what we can afford, what we can't afford. And once the financial part of the change is sorted, everything else is just a noise, because everything else is a worry, which after that, you see that you shouldn't have wasted your time to worry. The only thing you should think about is the financial support. So you can do what you are planning to do, knowing that the family is okay, you're okay, and you have room to work without the initial return. Because when you start something new, you can't get on day 1, it's 0. On day 2 is 0. On day 3 is 0. Third month is 0. So
how long you can support yourself and your family without earning anything, right?
Yeah, so that's very important. and that's why some of the change doesn't happen, and that can translate into the corporate world if there is no enough planning, if there is no enough resources dedicated to the change. There is no leadership. The leadership didn't buy into the change fully. Well, it's not going to happen. But because
I really liked, and I will pick up on what you said. So, is to actually the start is really to enlarge in your horizon, right? Just to see the life beyond your small circle, because we tend to connect to people who are surrounding us at work or our former classmates, so from the universities, and we all have very similar career, and so we're in a niche, and we have a very, very narrow vision, and so I experience exactly the same, and I think it's really a great suggestion just to go and explore and try to see the world behind your small niche. And once you see all the opportunities around, maybe there is something that will trigger your interest and give you the energy, and you would like to embrace the change. And afterwards, it's the matter of planning and making sure you have security, financial security, that your family is okay, and then just go full steam to your dream. Right?
Exactly. No, you did summarize it very well. And one thing I'm going to add is that before I took a final decision, right, I spoke with somebody who has done such a change from a high-flying corporate career into a completely different field. So I remember what he told me. He said, look, you can make your plan about what you're going to do after you leave your work, but remember to stay open, because the opportunity, once you get out, the opportunities that will open in front of you, you would have never had thought about them. So stay open, and if you have to change your plan, change it, because he said a lot of things will start going your way as you go through to a different path. So yes, what you said is exactly right.
Right.
You just have to start it. You just have to start it.
Yeah, I actually followed through a quite significant change in my life as well, and it was difficult. So I had a good position, and but then I wanted to it was a private financial company, but then I wanted to work in the international environment and in central banking, and for this actually I had to do PhD, and I was in France. I just came 2 years ago at the time, and I was not feeling very secure of changing this position. And then I had a great advice from my boss, who told me that having just any job, you can always get it, but following your dream is really an opportunity that you should follow and go after. And I think that was just such a great advice, and I am grateful for this since then, because I really it was not an easy change, but I'm so happy I did it.
Yeah. And, no change is easy. No change is easy.
Yeah.
If it was easy, everyone would have done it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And before going to sustainability, just a brief question, because you lived in so many countries, and you're familiar with the cultures, the Western, but also the Asian. And so do you have an impression, or do you know that in some countries people embrace changes more openly, or maybe they're willing to take these changes, and they're very active in doing it? Or do you think like people everywhere are pretty similar, changes are difficult, and the most just don't do it?
Well, I think that I've traveled to so many countries and lived in 6 of them. I think that people generally are very similar everywhere. What is different are customs and habits in the different countries. They have different customs, different way of living, but people are very much the same. So I think it's about well, change. Generally, change is a disruption, right? You have to go through a disruption, and generally, people. It's a feature that, I mean, if I'm okay, if I earn good money, if my life is okay, well, I'm okay this way, right? It's such an uncertain world. I would rather stay put and live with whatever I have. And it takes very different thinking and to take this step, because even if you have a lot of money, that doesn't mean you're going to change very often only because you are financially supported, right? So it's about the individual and what the individual wants to achieve and whether they have grit and good intention to do it. So I don't think there is a certain country where people have better attitude to change, and certain countries that they don't. I haven't seen this. It just, people are very similar.
Okay, so it requires a personal,
It's
courage and the eagerness to follow your dream, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Even not dream, even something which is good to change, right? It doesn't need to be a dream.
Yeah. Intentions.
Just intentions. Just I want to do this. Full stop. You move on. You do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and so now let's talk about the sustainability, because it's also a very significant change that people should make. And I am interested, how did it start for you? When did you realize that you have to act? And what was your first habit that you introduced? Or maybe you introduced like the whole package. How was it?
Okay, so the first realization about climate was when I was 10 years old. So, and I talk about this in my TED talk, but I'll just briefly share with you. I was in the town where my grandmother lived. It was a summer vacation, and in the East and in Bulgaria, summer vacation, you don't sit in the capital with your parents, you go to your grandmother's house. So I was sitting on the street with my friends, and there was a parked car, and I was sitting on the pavement just behind the car. And then the driver just got in at one point, switched on the car, and because I was close to the exhaust, the exhaust just came into my face. And for the first time in my life, I just realized that this thing is not breathable. I never thought about it. I mean, 10 years old. I mean, you don't think about these things. It's not breathable. Right. And I was like, my goodness, panic totally. I was thinking, gosh, where is this going? This is just sitting here, this gas. And in my head, the idea was that, okay, that's it. The earth will slowly be engulfed with this gas, and we are all going to choke and die. That was what I was thinking. And it was I still remember this. I remember it so clearly because it was such a shock. You know, when you have a horror thought and your stomach churns. So this is when this was the realization. So then I went to my father and I said, and I told him about this, and he fell backwards laughing, but he told me, no, don't worry, this is what happens. The CO2 is absorbed by the trees and the green grass and everything green, and they produce oxygen. And I said, oh, thank God. But then as I grew up, so I remember that period, that episode, and then after that is a blur. So how I started doing things, I don't remember. I just know that I
Okay, so you
did them,
didn't go to campaign against cars.
No, I didn't go. I just started thinking, wow, I haven't bought a car for a long time when I was young. Maybe because of that. I just every time I just have this feeling that I don't want to do something that is causing harm, and it's the drive for me really was, okay, all this is causing harm on me, and I'm a bit of a hypochondriac.
Mm-hmm.
I want to live a long and healthy life. So if there is something that is going to stop me, well, I'm against this something. So that's the thinking process that drive me through all these environmentally friendly habits, and this is how this is what drives me to go and read. Well, what can you do, how does it work, how exactly, what are the different gases in the atmosphere? These are things that I learned not because I needed it in work or to talk to my friends. It's just because I wanted to understand how everything works.
Mm-hmm.
What happens with plastic, how can we eliminate it, what can it be replaced with, and then certain ideas come, and the more you read, the more you discover, the more things you discover you can do. So
the more you're frightened.
Yeah, and the more you're frightened. Yeah, exactly.
How can we survive?
You just think, what is going to happen? It's obvious, right? And I just can't see why people don't see it, but different people have different thoughts. But another drive for me are my kids. Before it was just my desire to live long and healthy life. But now it's also for them to have the same nature, the clean air, the clean water. They're only 11, right? What kind of earth I'm going to leave to them?
Yeah. And so what do you do? I'm sorry.
And if they ask me one day, what did you do? And I say nothing, I can't imagine saying that to my kids. And that's another factor, right? And which drives me.
And so what do you do?
What do I do? Well, I do many things. I've added different habits throughout my life that I follow, and that they're very simple habits. They don't change the way you live. You just tweak a little bit of them, and that's why for me they were very easy to implement. And I can start with the very simple ones. So the first question I always had is what are these things that we buy and then we throw immediately in about 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And I hate waste. I really hate waste. I just can't understand why should I waste the work of other people and harm the environment in the process. So I'll give you an example. You go to we have here in where I live, we discovered a shop where all the vegetables and fruits are not packed in plastic bags, but they're just like you can pick whatever you want. And we started shopping there, and the first time we went there, I started picking up fruits and vegetables, and I would put them on the counter in front of the shop assistant, and I would go and select other things. And then I came back and I see all these things put in plastic bags. No, first in plastic bags. So I said, why? I have a bag. I don't need a bag. And the guy said, oh, okay, I'll give you an equal one. And he took out a paper bag. So I said, and that's even worse. That's even worse. So the poor guy, he was totally lost. What is this lady? What does she want? But that's the fact, right? Why? I mean, I have so many bags at home. So many, right? From that I have used.
Absolutely.
Or I've taken or somebody brought to me. You can use them. And I always go with a bag where I don't take anything. And I'm all for all the plastic to be not to be used, right? And that motion in the European Union and many other countries in the world not to use plastic, not to use anything that is from plastic, it's great. But the motion that we should now replace it with paper, that's for me is appalling, because that means that not only we are not solving the issue, we're creating even bigger issue, because the paper comes from trees. That paper, they all say, oh, it's biodegradable, but is it really? Because for something to biodegrade properly, it requires a lot of oxygen, environment with oxygen. But in the landfill, there is no oxygen. Everything is like that, and things don't rot properly. They start emitting methane, which is the worst gas that can exist, and it is the worst gas that creates the warming. So that's one of the things. So I never use any of this. I have replaced straws with metal straws. I refuse, every time I go, I refuse napkins or paper bags or anything. That I just don't do it. So that's one very simple habit.
And how do you feel your sustainable journey? Is it lonely? Do you get a lot of support from people around you, or do they question? Do they feel that such lifestyle is constraining? How do you experience this?
I will not lie. It was quite lonely and frustrating, and very annoying, because I mean, even 5 years ago, people thought that the global warming there is no global warming, and it's okay, right? 5 years ago, and even heads of states would say that. And if that's what the people on the top think, what would the everyday person think, right? So I generally, when I say something, people roll their eyes like this and say, oh, she's one of these people, right? Or they say nothing. They say nothing, but you know that you feel that, oh, okay, I should stop talking about this because they'll think I'm a weirdo. That was then. Now I actually don't care. I openly say what I think.
So it's not that the world changed. You changed. You said, no, those are my values, and I will speak about them.
Exactly, yeah. So I said, well, if you don't like it, don't listen to me. But I don't intentionally go and, argue with people. I just say, I just give a suggestion. Well, you might want to try this. Well, can you just, they're metal straws, I can tell you where to buy. They're very good. Stuff like this. But yeah, it's not, when I see somebody who thinks like me, I'm just so happy. And but more and more people think like me, and I actually was very impressed with young people here in Greece, of all places, because when we went to have lemonade with my kids, and the waiter was a young guy, and he brought us straws, although they're bio straws, right? Now they sell here, but I said, no, I don't want to waste. I have my metal straws. And he said, oh, I wish there are more people like you. This is great. And I end up speaking with this guy. He's like 30 years younger than me, but and this is where my hope is, that the young people really get it, and they're just really going to change the things.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true. And you gave your talk about these environmental issues in Bulgaria. So what the feedback did you get in Bulgaria? Because I can imagine that's a country which is maybe a bit slower than the European ones to move to this sustainable lifestyle.
Well, I think it was very good feedback. Obviously, the people who listened to my TED talk, it was in English because it was part of the global TED countdown, and it's this year. The year was dedicated to talks about what can we do about the environment.
Okay.
That's why I went to speak about it. But I had several TV interviews because of the TED Talk, and there's so many people who actually came back to me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and they said, "Wow, some of the things that you spoke about, we never thought about, and it was so eye-opening." And some people said, "Oh, I'm now doing this, right?" So I think recently things have started to get pace, to accelerate a little bit into the right direction. So I think now the awareness and the desire to do something is much more than what it was 5 years ago. So I have hope that things will get better.
Yeah, that's that's the only we have. The only thing we have is to have hope. And
exactly. And the thing is, the thing is that other things people say is, "Wow, I mean, I'm just one person. What can I do?" But I believe that the governments, the companies, the people, they all have their role to play. So if we as individuals just wait for the companies and the government to do something, nothing is going to happen. Mm-hmm. We have our role. We are the consumer, right? If I'm one person, but imagine 1 million other people start doing that, or 2 million or 5 million, they're all individuals, and they start saying, "Okay, I'm not taking the paper bag from you." That will change something, right? Yeah. There will be a change in, or they say, "Okay, they're not buying these plastic bags, so these paper bags, what should I do?" And this is how things change.
Yeah, I love your example in the TED Talk about the 1 and 0. So if we don't do anything, nothing changes. But if one person starts changing something, and then million, 2 million more people join, that's a huge impact.
Exactly. So regardless how great an idea is, if nobody follows it, it's dead, nothing. But if you do one little thing, like not taking or not using straws, or even switching off your lights, Wi-Fi at night, I mean, things that people don't think about. If you use your washing machine on cold cycle, that has a huge impact, and especially if many people do it.
Yes, right. And then, we still shouldn't forget that companies should change as well, right?
Oh,
and because you worked for so many years in banking, and the banks, they finance the economy and the industries. And so, do you think that banks do enough to address the climate change issues? And if not, what should they do? And do you see any change in the culture in the corporate world?
Okay, so that's a complex question, but I would divide the answer into two. So the first, for not only banks but financial institution companies, they have to, first of all, take care of their carbon footprint. So what is their consumption of energy? What are their buildings? How they do, let's say, deliveries. So how sustainable are the things that they own: buildings, operational sites, computers, etc. So in that field, I think banks have done a lot. And the buildings that are being done now are sustainable. They're done in a way to reduce energy consumption, etc. So in that field, a lot has been done, and more is going to be done for sure. So completely another thing is the financing practices. Okay, so in the finances practices, there were steps. They have to be just more aggressive. But again, we live in a society, in an environment, and more and more, the culture of this environment is, yes, we have to do more. And we can see now that companies started pledging, banks like HSBC said, we are not going to finance coal after 2030 or 2040. And there are different pledges that are coming in. I think that's a great development. I personally would want to see a bit more, not a bit, quite a bit more, because
not only pledges, but actions.
Yeah, actions, they have to accelerate, because this year is the 5th consecutive year of temperature rise. It's a no-brainer, right?
Everybody can feel.
Everybody can feel it. So I don't know what next, what should happen for people to start accelerating. And I don't want to get to a situation where more events happen, like disasters. So people can suddenly wake up and say, "Oh God, this is really serious," and then everybody will start pushing everybody. I mean, people, the public, the governments, the companies. But until that's a fact, actually, no, let's not get there. Let's start now. So yes, I think things have been done, banking especially, but we need to accelerate to really meet these goals that everybody has put in place.
Yeah, it's now. It's happening now. We should act right now. And actually, it's interesting. So what you said, that there are more, the temperature is rising. There are more dreadful climate events, and that like everybody should just wake up and see and say, "Oh, that's horrible. We should immediately make changes." But some studies show that people have this confirmation bias, and basically, if people already have believed that the climate change is happening, they see these events and they interpret them as climate events, and it reinforces their beliefs and in changes and actions. While people who have don't have initially the beliefs about the climate change, and they see all these events, they actually somehow still don't believe that it's all related to the climate change. And they just think, oh, it can be anything. And even like they don't relate that it's the 5th year. It's, oh, this year is very hot. But
it's the 5th.
Yeah, no thought occurs that it's the 5th year. And so they don't make all these observations joining together. Yeah, so that's very interesting. I think what you said, the experience with the talk, so like we just have to keep talking and informing and encouraging the action and facilitating the action, and the governments should do it too. And
I think it has to become personal for people to act, and because when we say global warming, everybody thinks, oh, something global, right? It's not personal. It's not in my yard. Yeah. It's global. But more Somewhere. And more people, they realize that actually, no, it is my personal issue, because I'll give you 2 examples for Athens. We moved here 1 year ago, and this summer there were these devastating fires, and the fires were 5 kilometers from our house. I could see it from the terrace, the fires, I could see it. And we were very lucky that the wind, we were not downwind from the fires. That was the only luck we had. That's the first. And second, in the autumn, there were torrential rains for 2 days, which are totally not typical for Athens or Greece in general. So there was such rain. The rain was as if I felt that I am in Mumbai in the middle of the rainy season, not in Athens. Wow. And our basement flooded twice. in a matter of 2 days. Flooded twice. So I don't know what more personal you want, right? What more has to happen?
Yeah, so that you really feel that it concerns you, your family, and absolutely. And well, it was a very nice talk. It was very nice discussion, and we have time running up. And I just want to ask you the last question. So about the 2 books that you found the most inspiring for you in terms of the changes or maybe sustainability.
Yeah. All right. So I have prepared the books here. So that 2 books that inspired me this year, right? Not generally many other books inspired me, but this year, one book is How Bad Are Bananas? And this is by Mike Berners-Lee. And in the book, you can read what is the CO2 of everything we do, everything. Reading a book, switching off a light, everything. It's just approximation of what is our footprint.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very, very, for me, it's really an eye-opening book. And I wish more people read it. And the facts inside are published more widely so people can, so people can see. The other book is Small Actions, Leading Your Career to Big Success. This is by Eric Sim. Eric Sim is a leader on LinkedIn who has 2.8 million followers, and he did a pivot from a banking career into he's a writer, he's a lecturer, speaker, etc. So in this book, if you want to follow somebody on LinkedIn and this guy is, let's say, 5 years on LinkedIn, and you have to go through posts and waste a lot of time to look at something, well, this book is solving this for you. If you want to change your career, if you want to make a pivot, there you are, you have it in this, you can buy it. And amazing stories, personal stories, and how from his Singaporean, so personal stories of his life and the life in Singapore. So these are the 2 books I really enjoyed this year.
Was it the last book that inspired you to make this huge change in your career?
Well, the book, this one is just published, but I said my Eric Sim and his actions actually was an example that this can happen. And this actually helped me to make the step and learn from him. Because as I said, it's very important to have somebody who has done it. And that's your guiding light.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Ani. That was a true pleasure. And I wish you all the best with the launch of your company. And make the word about the change, the possibility of a change and sustainability spread out large. And
thank you so much.
Thank you, all listeners, and see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.